we all just see you, Peter, rather than everybody else. You don't want to watch, you don't want to see me. All right, first thing is, if everybody can stay muted and ask questions using the chat box on the bottom, it's a bit like texting if you haven't used it before. And if you text to everyone rather than one particular person, then everyone can see your questions and it works better that way. The session is being recorded, so if you don't want your lovely face to be seen on the video, you can eliminate that by pressing stop video. And it's useful if you've got your own name on it rather than my friend's iPad or something as your description. Other than that, I'd just like to welcome Pete Waterman, the owner of Leamington Spa, a fantastic layout. I was lucky enough to go and actually see it in person. And thank you, Peter, for allowing some members of our organisation to... oh, sorry.
No, pleasure.
Yeah. To come and video it. Thank you very much.
No, it's pleasure. Pleasure.
Okay.
That's what it's here for.
Well, to kick things off then, can I ask what gave you the first idea of building a layout in O gauge?
Well, before this, I've been building models, layouts really since about 1956. And as I got older, I was originally EM, and then I went to 10 mil because I wanted more detail. But when I did the railway series for Channel 4, I really wanted to build my own layout. And I looked at 10 mil, but decided that actually 7 mil was the right gauge for me for what I wanted to do. So now, this is 24 years ago. The O gauge was so different then to what it is now. I mean, it's light years away. It's changed beyond description in 25 years.
So is that when you started building locos and wagons and that?
We actually started 20 years ago next October. So we've been working on it now just over 19 years. And when we started, we had nothing. We hadn't got any stock, whether it be wagons, coaches, or rolling stock, or locomotives. So we very much started from a clean sheet and said, right, this is what we want to do. We sat down and had a long conversation. And I think we must have drunk too much whiskey. Because looking back, I mean, what we tried and what we've done is lunacy. I mean, you wouldn't really do it like this because it's just too much of a mammoth task.
So you started off with the idea, and then who came up with the track drawing then? Was it yourself or was it a group of friends?
No. I got all the rating plans for Leamington Spa. So I always knew we were going to build Leamington Spa and Hatton Bank and Brinklow. So we built those to the railway plans. So they dictated the track plan completely. So although obviously we've had to shrink the scale, all the points are in the right place, all the signals are in the right places. It's just a cheat of how we've got it all in.
I was going to say, did you have to use a bit of selective compression?
Yes. I mean, in truth, it's 26 feet too short. But overall, by putting in all the mileposts where they should be, albeit fictitiously, just using photographs where they should be, it looks right. And that's the important thing. The weight, the way you look at it, the actual perspective and weight is about right. And to the point that when we locked down and I had time on my hands, the thing that was obvious to me at the time was the goods shed that I'd built 10 years ago just was too small for Leamington Spa. So it was the opportunity in lockdown just to take it out, extend the layout and build a whole new goods shed, which has completely, to me, changed the dynamics of the railway because it's now balanced to me. You've got a big station and a big goods shed. You've not got because the station itself, the building, is actually bang on scale. The platforms are shortened, but the actual buildings are scale.
Mm-hmm. And so Is all the track hand built or is it
Yeah.
Pico?
No, all of the main track is hand built. Now the storage sidings are all Pico because again, we'd have never achieved what we wanted to do if we'd have had to build absolutely all the points. Everything's hand built. We took certain decisions right at the beginning because of time. We decided that we wouldn't like the signals on the buildings because again, the complexity of 278 signal arms being, red and yellow was just too much. There's just the time factor would have stopped us doing it.
Exactly. I totally agree. So what do you use to power your points?
Tortoise. We've still got the tortoise. It's only lost one in 19 years.
They seem to be very, very robust. And
yeah, no. Honestly, they're fantastic. You can rely on them. I mean, I don't even take it in for granted that they, when you press a button, they work. And as I say, in 19 years, we've only had one go down.
Do you use the tortoise switches to switching the frogs, or do you use additional micro switches?
Additional micro switches. Yeah. Yeah, as I say, when we started, DCC was, of course, in its infancy, and we decided right at the very beginning that it had to be DCC because of what we wanted to do. So, like fools, we rushed in headlong into DC to find out it only does what you don't want it to do. In other words, what you think it doesn't actually do. So obviously for a railway this size, it is important that when you press a switch for the point to go over or the signal to come off, it's come off before the light changes. Well, DCC doesn't work on feedback. So getting over problems like that were our initial concerns. Luckily, I live just outside Manchester, and the Manchester club, has got some serious DCC members, including Professor Mike Bolton, who set up all the NRM standards, and he was brilliant because he'd never seen a layout as big as what we were trying to do. So he came over and advised us from day one and wrote programs for us. So we went Zemo very quick, from the beginning. And Mike and the Merg, what turned into Merg, they started writing programs as we found faults, which is how we've got around all the problems. Because
you use Merg controllers now, don't you?
Yes, we do. We've gone completely over to Merg, and we can test stuff on the layout, and it's simple to use. There are over the summer on the 4 we use the Zemos again, and I forgot just how good the Zemo system is. I mean, the Zemo system is fantastic, expensive, but fantastic. I mean, I think when I bought the Zemo system, and that's now 20 years ago, it cost me £5,000. So, if you look at the full Zemo system now, you're still up to about £7,500. And that for most modelers is way out of budget. Forget it. It's, forget that.
Yeah. And obviously, you'll have to have boosters for the length of the circuit that you've got.
Well, to be honest, we didn't have, that wasn't really the problem. The problem was when you switch it on, the surge can be too much. So we had to put brakes in so that it when you switched it on, it was a microsecond to go all the way around, because it just couldn't take all the signals and all the points changing at once. It just crashed completely.
Yeah. So what you instead of having separate circuits and a series of circuit breakers, you installed a programmable system to switch it on in sequence.
Yeah, that's right. So automatically, when you switch it on, it goes around the layout and switches on millisecond after millisecond. So there's not one big drop at a time. It was quite funny the first time it ever happened. We switched it on. We was going to have a running session. I was just checking that everything was working. And literally the signal arms were doing this. I'm thinking, what's going on?
You're killing it. Don't forget, if anybody's got any questions, please.
I've got a question, Tony, Peter. The question is, why the particular prototype? What was the reason behind it?
Well, first I grew up in Leamington. Spent all my summers there and holidays because my uncle Ernie was he was the car manager at Standard Motor Company in Coventry, and he went fishing on the River Leam in Leamington every Wednesday. And my mum and my auntie used to take him over his food and drop me at the station for a couple of hours. Of course, that's not the truth. They were going down the pub, but I was too young to know that, you know. So it is the perfect model for me, because when we looked at this, we had Jeff Holt was still alive, and we had certain LMS modelers that didn't want to see Great Western engines. So the layout had to have an LMS part to it, which of course Leamington did because it's a cross-country station. And it also did one thing that I think makes a model railway, and that's it put buildings in front of the track. So you lose the train, it goes in and out of buildings, which is what you do on the real railway. You mean you lose things, they disappear. We tend to sometimes try and cram everything into 12 feet. And this was I guess at the time, a different approach. This was like, well, let's stretch it out and let's make the model railway as part of a scenery. A bit like Pendon, you know, that was, I guess we're all influenced by Pendon. And I just thought that the town centre at Leamington Spa was marvellous because it's got these bridges, the station, and everything got on the way of the trains. I thought, well, this is brilliant modelling. You won't see the trains.
Well, you do, and that's the nice thing about it.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah. So when you modelled the layout, it's built at around about 3 foot high. Is that right?
Yeah, 3'6" ish. Yeah.
Is that simply so that it's easy to get at to work on, or is that because you feel that that's a nice viewing height for when you stood up next to it?
Yeah, I think for me, if you're looking down on something, you lose the perspective. So there's that balance between looking down and looking across. And I wanted, we wanted it so you could actually work on it. So it's got to be at a workable height. But I didn't want it so low that you're looking down on it. And we did experiment. We did try a couple of levels, but this we all felt comfortable at. And of course, the ironic thing is that it's a track bed most of the time in the city on the Leamington itself. It's a track bed at 3'6", not the legs, because of course the station stands above the road, so the road's actually about 14 inches lower.
So that gives you a bit of added perspective as well.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, and it gives you can see through the tunnels and through the roadways. It's not a flat layout. I mean, all the gradients are in. So again, it allows you to do all sorts of tricks.
What sort of tricks, like really pushing a loco and load up a hill and coasting down? Yeah,
I mean, when the king on the Teaks weighs 14.5 kilos, the train, the engine weighs 3 kilos, coming out the station, and there's a 40-mile-an-hour limit at Leamington Spa. If you pull it into the platform, to get it out the platform, it is a hike getting it up the bank to get it back to go round. So you have to drive them. You can't just open the controller and it picks up. It doesn't. You've literally got to learn how to drive it. You have to do what you do on the real thing. Open it up quick, close it, get a grip, and then gently ease it open.
Yeah. So as you drive around the layout, you follow the signals.
Yes.
Yes. Is it interlocked so that if you happen to shoot past the signal, the loco comes to a sudden halt, or?
No. It's like the real railway. You hit something.
Hopefully nothing too expensive.
No. That's. I mean, we did look at that. It's all, it is interlocked, but again, it's for you, the driver, to follow the signals, and I don't want automatic, killers that kill it if you overshoot the signal. If you overshoot the signal, that's your fault, and you soon learn when you start bending your locomotive. It's an expensive thing to do.
Right, well, we've got a question from I've forgotten who it was, but somebody wants to know about your bespoke buildings and structures. Can you
Yes.
talk about how you build those?
Yeah, I'm very lucky. As I said, I got the rates plan for 1952 for Leamington Spa from the council. And there's a wonderful site called Britain from Above, which is free to join. It's all the aero films from the 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s. And along with the racing plan, I could see every building. So I was able to see all of the buildings from the air for 1947, which is the year I used, look on the racing plan, draw which buildings they were, then find pictures of those buildings. And obviously, I went probably 50 times photographing all the buildings like they look today, because they look different, but they haven't changed the buildings. There's only 2 or 3 buildings that aren't there anymore. So in that respect, it was very easy finding old photographs and making them. They're all 2 mil or 1 mil MDF. We do them in 2D and 3D CAD. We laser cut them ourselves, and I build all the buildings, and they're simple. Some buildings are half, as you can see. Some that are full buildings. We don't do the interiors. Again, that's for what we're trying to achieve. We'll come back to that if we live long enough and think and worry about that in 20 years' time. It was more important to get the structures in place, get the streets working. And I like building buildings. I mean, I must admit, somewhere in me there's a doll's house builder. I don't know where that's come from, but there is a satisfaction about building a big block. I can understand why Rod Stewart loves building skyscrapers, because when we built the big buildings, the Regency buildings in Leamington Spa, they were fantastic to build. They were very difficult, and they did challenge, your model making skills, particularly the round ends. Brilliant.
So you're really adapted to the 3D printing and 3D drawing and things like that then?
Yeah, well, just like the real thing, we were 3D printing 25 years ago. So it's not new to me. I mean, I've had some really, really expensive machines. I mean, some of our machines were 120,000 quid. So, 3D printing for me was, I know what it does. As 3D printing's got better. So, for cheaper, it enabled us to make smaller bits. Now, I know everybody gets excited about 3D printing, but let me assure everybody, you get what you pay for. So if you're making small parts in 3D, no problem at all. You go above that, then you're asking for trouble. The bigger the piece, the more likely it is that you need a more expensive machine. And we've got 2 here now, 500 quid type machines, which are great for doing small parts you would never see. But you couldn't, I was just looking for something here. Go back a second. Bear with me. You couldn't do this, for instance, with a 500 quid machine.
No.
That's a £130,000 machine, and that's 6 days work. And the resin alone in that piece probably costs 750 quid. But that's what you're doing if you're a manufacturer and you're making toys or models that you're selling. That's the process you have to use.
Yes. So that's the sort of thing that like Ellis Clark will be doing and people like that. And,
yeah, well, in China they're using 3D machines that are probably using the car industry 1 minute and they're getting models done on it the next minute. That's the way it works.
Mm-hmm. So when you're building these buildings, then do you paint them before you glaze them, or do you glaze them and then be very, very careful painting them?
No, that's a question. Do you glaze them?
Do you glaze them?
No. No, because the glass shines too much. So unless you're going to actually mat your windows out, you probably get too much glare off your windows. Shop windows I put in, but I don't put in flat windows and that on everything. If it's going to pick up the light, mm-hmm. It becomes too bright. It's too destructive. So sometimes it's best to leave the glass out and darken the room down inside, and you don't see that there's no glazing.
So in brickwork and that, do you use laser cut brickwork or plastic?
No. That's the one thing I don't use. All of my brickwork is plasticard. I believe it's easier to use. I do laser cut the plasticard, by the way. So I'll laser cut the building and I'll laser cut the plasticard to fit in, so I don't have to cut all the windows out. I'll even cut the lintels out on the laser and then make the lintels separate. But I find that this latest plasticard, you can paint it better. It looks better. You can get neater edges, and you can, with the polystyrene glues, you can blend it in, and when it's going off, you can make it so you can't see the joint.
Mhm.
You can do that with laser cut brickwork, but that's too difficult for me. That.
Mhm.
See, I like to hand color all the bricks. I mean, I spray all the buildings the same color, which is a sort of light desert sand, which is like just for the mortar, and I leave them for a week, and then I hand paint the bricks. I do all that myself, and it does take ages, but the result is fantastic.
Mhm.
I don't try and spray brickwork.
So do you use acrylics or do you use enamels, or what do you use?
I use enamels, mainly the Humbrals for the bricks. I do like them. In fact, I've got tons of them sitting around at me at the minute. I mean, I've got drawers of things. I use, these little pots. I've always used them. I like, I dry brush them on, and they're brilliant. What I have found now, since doing the 4 mil stuff and having to do massive, big areas, I've gone to oil paints. I now use a lot of oil paints, and I actually find out that with terps and oil paints, you can get some fantastic effects. And I know this is getting arty now, and far be it from me to get arty, but I watched a program on the painting of the Mona Lisa, and of course the glow and the depth of that picture is created by overlaying lighter and lighter colors of oil paint, and you can do that with weather in it. It's just, and you can pull it beautifully, and it takes about 2 hours before it goes really dry enough to worry about it. It's brilliant.
Right. Ian Allen's asked, have you used any of the Regitex brick sheets rather than Slaters?
No, I'm sorry. I am a Slaters fanatic. If it works for me, stick with it. I've tried. I mean, honestly, I've tried so much stuff over the years. But I am. If it works, I'll stay with it. And as I say, we have tried laser cutting brickwork, but I'd rather stick with Slaters. And brick paper to me has always been a no-no. It's too flat. I've never liked brick paper. It looks great in photographs, when you see like Ken Payne's layout from it, which is an inspiration to me. It looks fantastic, but when you actually see it, it's too flat. Mm-hmm. So it's that balance between what looks great in the picture and what satisfies you.
That's it. And it's something that you're familiar with, so you keep on doing it that way.
Yeah, I mean, it gets annoying sometimes. I mean, when you think you've got 8 hours to paint, one wall, I have to say sometimes you want to throw it down the garden, but, you persevere with it, don't you? You know what I mean? You think, Christ, I've got another 20 foot of wall to paint. Bloody hell, it's take me another 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
That's the great thing about 4 mil. You can't paint and bricks.
Diversifying slightly, Craig Lennox has noticed you've got a great deal of railway memorabilia on your walls. Do you have any from the Leamington Spa area as well?
Sorry?
Do you have any railway memorabilia on your walls from the Leamington Spa area?
Yes. In front of me, which I can't show you because it's screwed to the wall, I've got 84D shed plate. Oh, I tell you what, where is it? I've lost it somewhere. Somewhere here is the hang on, let me find it. Hang on a sec. Keep talking amongst yourselves. Oh, it is. I found it.
He's found it. By Jove, he's found it.
Here's a piece of real memorabilia. Put my earphones back in. Oops. Hang on, sorry about this, chaps. I don't know whether you can see this because it's a bit close. Unauthorised persons. That is the shed notice board. That was on the shed at Leamington Spa as you walked past the foreman's office. And about 4 years ago, I got a phone call from a guy that said, I've got something you may be interested in my garage. It was my dad's, and I'm sure he'd love you to have it. He was the demolition guy that knocked down Leamington's shed, and he kept the prohibited board. Would you want it? So I've actually got that, yeah.
There we are. Does that answer your question then, Craig?
Thank you. Yes.
I've been collecting memorabilia for over 40 years, you know, when I started, I was buying in 1963. I could buy a name and number plate off a Great Western Engine for £5.06, and that included it being delivered in a Hessian sack to your house, you know. So, yeah. So I did, you know, I have got a great collection of nameplates. I think I've only ever sold one in my life. But I also started collecting diesel plates very, very early. And because I caught my train every day from Euston. And I used to go into Collector's Corner and meet Bob Ballard, who ran it. And they get to know you, you know, at the end of the month you got paid. And he'd always have a couple of Peak plates or Western plates or Warship plates. And he'd always say, I've got a couple in this month. And they were 400 quid in them days. I mean, you know, and as a single bloke as I was then, it was like, well, what am I going to do with this 400 quid? I'll buy, I'll get a nameplate.
You could nearly buy a loco kit.
Well, I mean, when I, you know, you laugh, but I mean, I looked at buying a loco, and in those days you could buy a loco for like 8,000 or 9,000 quid, and it was in pretty good condition. The problem was you had to remove it from BR and get it somewhere. And I know this, I mean, some of your listeners will laugh at this, but I was offered a Mickey Mouse, and it was a British Rail one built at Rugby. It was lying at Rugby in great condition. It's been overhauled about 2 years. And I thought, yeah, this would be fantastic. I rang the Severn Valley and they wouldn't take it because it was a British Rail engine. They didn't want anything from British Rail at all. You know, in them days, we didn't ever think of saving British Rail. If it wasn't LMS or Great Western, they weren't interested. How about that for preservation?
Yeah. Modern image.
Well, it was to them, yeah. I mean,
yeah.
And now, you know, I mean, I've seen that whole movement change. I mean, you know, when we started the diesel galas at the East Lancs, Christ knows, I mean, that's probably 30 years ago now. But I mean, the Steam Boys took a bit of a hump that we had this whole weekend given to just run diesels. I mean, now everybody has diesel galas. They're hugely successful.
Yes.
But back then, you know, I think I had to underwrite them for 3 years before there was, you know, enough enthusiasts just coming for the diesels to make it worthwhile.
And so you're still getting with the full-scale stuff?
Oh, yeah, I still got my steam engines. In fact, 55, 53, my little Prairie tank has gone back into service this weekend for the first time. In fact, my engineer's here today playing trains. That's who you can see walking around, working the layout. 5224 is well on the way. No, you know, we love our steam engine. And this will be the last time for me because I'm 75 in January. So the next time they come up for their 10 years, I'll be 85. Well, if I'm here, God willing, I certainly won't be looking to, you know, spend another 180 grand on a steam engine.
So getting back to this Leamington Spa row gauge layout.
Right.
I talked earlier on about the point control and things like that. Are they DCC controlled, or are they just a switch panel?
They are both. Now I say that the early stuff we kept it simple, was a switch control. Now it's DCC controlled because it's all interlocked. So ultimately, when we finished the new boxes, there's one box to finish, which is Leamington Spa Avenue. When that's finished, then we'll go back to the original control box which we put in the points, and that will be upgraded to like the rest of the system. Then it will be DCC throughout.
Right then. And will that be addressed by selecting a point number, or will you have a panel to go to interlink with the computerized system to select a point?
Yeah, they're like modern signal boxes. You know, it's point in and point out. So
Yeah.
it's all lit up for you, and your routes are shown. The brain's in a different room, so you don't see it, and you just the Merg guys. You know, we're very lucky to have Les and all the Merg guys. I mean, they're just brilliant. I mean, to be honest, you know, I sound like I know what I'm talking about. I don't know what. I mean, Les and these boys talk riddles to me. I mean, you know, you say, could you just, yeah. It's just brilliant.
Mhm.
And I guess that's the best way to look at DCC is use it and don't worry about it. And let people like Les and the guys, let them talk it because they're into it. You know, they're talking about nano webbers and flying and blows, and I'm going, yeah, right, okay, yeah, right, yeah. You know, this section, yeah, right, okay.
Mhm.
Who cares? Does it go through? Yeah, great, fine.
So what's on your workbench at the minute?
1, 2, 3, 4, 15 sea cows, 14 iron ore wagons. I'm always building wagons. As everybody will tell you, the joke at Leamington Spa is, Pete, don't you think at 1,500 we've got enough wagons? No, there are. We have more than 1,500 wagons. Yes, but Pete, don't you think we've overdone this? There's wagons everywhere. You can never have too many wagons.
Can you get them all on the layout at once?
Right, okay. So the advantage of being at 3'6" is you can have an underground. And we have an underground. And guess what? It's full of wagons. So you know, we've got a great fiddly yards that's not part of the layout, which is a different storage sidings. But we've also got a whole underground, 2 lines up and down under that we can store stuff as well. Because obviously we can't put the Great Western stuff through the Leamington Spa Avenue station because it's LMS. So yeah. Have we got too many wagons? I don't think we've got too many wagons. Nobody else that works here, by the way, would agree with this statement, because I love building wagons, and to me, all our coal trains are all 65 wagons, and that to me makes the model. That's what I enjoy when it just trundles by you, takes 5 minutes to get past you, and disappears into the distance. That to me is what we're trying to achieve.
Do you ever run the layout as have a full operating session where the layouts run in a sort of, well, yeah, Julian Best just asked exactly the same. Do you operate Leamington Spa to timetable? What sort of process, and do you use block instruments?
You see this here? Look at this. Look, see this?
Not as bad as mine, Peter.
Well, that's what you get when you try and run a timetable on a layout this size. Okay, it drives you bloody mad. Right. Let me tell you, I can run up to 69 different trains without repeating. Okay. That will take 7 to 8 people, 8 hours of hard work to do. So there comes a point when you go, you know what? Let's have some fun. Let's enjoy it. Let's not have to concentrate so hard to change engines and keep so yes, we do. And yes, we can, but no, we don't.
Yeah.
Because we enjoy it. If we want to go around a couple of times, we do. If we want to go around or keep one engine just circling, we do. We have the ability to run that timetable. Yes, we can do it. But to be honest, it is hard work, really hard work. And you need 10 or 11 people here to do it. You can't do it with a couple of people.
Do you ever operate the layout just as, I don't know, with a group of people and operate it just for fun, as in, I'm not really worried about a timetable, or that would just run the layout and run trains?
Just that, honestly, that's our philosophy is, let's have fun, run the layout, move as much as possible, whenever you can, go, put trains down difficult routes, do things that you don't normally do, swap stuff from the LMS to the Great Western, and vice versa. That's that's when we think the layout works best. When you get people who don't think about timetables, just look at all the engines and all the stock and just go, wow, let's just move it all at once. And it's things going everywhere. And it's smart. It's fantastic. And as long as it runs, I mean, while we've been doing this, talking, people have just been running trains. That's what it's all about.
Yeah. Just changing the subject somewhat, Peter. Ian Allen's asked, Peter, will you keep the DC option for train control when you have the new panels and full DCC control of points, etc.?
Yes, definitely. No, we'll never get rid of the one DC. I mean, I've still got some locos that are just DC. We haven't got around chipping them all. But more important, I think, if you get visitors come with a DC loco, you know what? They want to run. I want them to run. That's always been our policy here. If you turn up with a loco, you want it to run. As long as you take the ownership that it will fall apart if it ain't working properly. Yeah, it's up to you. I mean, I've seen a lot of fabulous engines meet their Waterloo on this line. Leamington definitely is the Waterloo for a lot of engines.
It's a very long line to run round. I remember sending my DMU round on your layout.
Yeah.
And it went round so slowly until you give it a bit of tender, loving care. And then it went round all right, but it still took 5 minutes to go around.
Yes. I mean, you're talking about 460 feet, and I say, that's the fun of the layout. But I mean, going back again to when we started 20 years ago, when we laid it out to build the stock, we just didn't have points. We just laid the track to the form that it is without the points. I mean, famous builders were bringing their locos and they were falling apart on the second time round because gearboxes weren't standard then, and they were worm wheels. And nobody had ever asked some of these models, although they look beautiful, to work this hard. And literally, I remember one of Jeff Holt's locos going up the line, and there was a line of brass where it had been, where the worm had worn the wheel out.
What sort of gearboxes do you tend to use these days?
I still got my ABC boxes, but then I went on to Ron Chaplin. When Ron Chaplin designed his gearboxes with the helical gears for my diesels, I pretty well standardised on those. And all my big engines have got Ron's boxes or ABCs in them. I mean, I mean, we do have a lot of engines on the layout. I think, we have the ability, with all the cabinets here, it's not a collection of locos. These locos all featured on the layout. So we regularly change the locos so they all get used. Not as often as they should do, by the way. But I mean, when we started off, for instance, it was when I was building my 15th hall, I suddenly went, hang on a minute here. This is nuts. This is nuts. I'm never going to have time to run 11 different halls. So 3 or 4 halls, that's great. 14 castles, 7 kings. What are you going to do with this lot? That's when you sit down in the dark room and think, I've gone completely balmy. I've gone completely balmy. Calm down. It's like, this is silly.
But you still enjoy building them?
Oh, yeah. And,
when you're not building wagons, that is.
Yeah. I must admit, I like building. This to me is, it's like when Rod Stewart gets very angry at people that say you play trains. He says, no, I don't play trains. I'm a railway modeler, and I am a modeler. I'm a modeler. I don't, I've just recently built a model airplane kit because I just want to do something different. I want to build a submarine in a minute. So I'm a modeler. That's what the interest is for me, is modeling. a gauge, O gauge to me is it's perfect size to modeling. It's interesting building in the 4 mil stuff for the cathedral. It was dead easy because I just got everything from Hornby out the box and built all the scenery like I was building a 7 mil model. That's what I did. And it worked. And everybody said, well, how do you swap between 7 and 4 mil? I don't. I only model in 7 mil. Just a tree is a tree is a tree. So in 4 mil, it's a big tree, and in 7 mil, it's a small tree.
Don't forget, if you've got any questions for Peter, don't be shy. Come forward and ask them. We've only got another quarter of an hour.
An interesting one then from John Starling, which I'm laughing at already, Peter, is
because I know, and he knows me as well.
how many figures are there on the layout, and how many in future?
None. There are no people on the layout. There are no tail lamps on the coaches. There are no headlamps on the locos. I don't have them. I hate people. No, seriously. No, seriously. I don't have any figures, and and the reason I don't have figures is because when you take pictures or film or videos of that, all the people are in the same places every time. They're all sitting in the same coach reading the same paper. Christ, the paper was in 1952. If they haven't read it by now, they've got a problem. So that's been the one thing I've always said to people, that's my choice, and that's my, if you like, thing that I do different. I just don't put tail lamps on because I like to change my formations. I think the more you fiddle with the stuff, the more damage you do. Which brings me to the big question that everybody should be asking. How often do you clean the track? And the answer is very simple. Never. Never touch it. Never clean the rolling stock. Never clean the track.
Is that because it's in constant use?
It's because when you've got this much track, it's impossible to clean. So it actually takes away your problem. Because, how do you clean 1,500 wagons without damaging them? That's 3,000 wheels. I mean, can you imagine how long it would take you to clean 3,000 wheels?
You'd have to start again as soon as you finished.
Exactly. So it's pointless doing it. So why it's going round and round like it is today, you let it go round and round. You just give them a quick dust off every now and again off the engines. Because, I'm terrible at spraying in this room. When I'm weathering, I use one of those, the small sprays that the ladies use for tanning. And it is, you shouldn't, but you do because it's comfortable sitting here modeling, and it's, but then you've got a bit of the atmosphere. Take it off the edges.
Use rattle cans, or do you have an airbrush?
No, I do use rattle cans. A lot of the time I make my own and buy. But this new gadget. I don't know if you've seen these. These are the things that ladies use for tanning. We use them in the film industry for putting makeup on. They're not expensive. They are brilliant. They're battery controlled. You can charge them up on your laptop. That presses it there. They're brilliant. I use oils, watercolors, anything I want to use, I do with that. And they're 20 quid. And you just plug them in your computer to charge them. They're brilliant. They are. All these buildings that you see on Leamington Spa, they're all done with that. And it just means if I'm not happy with the weather, I can just go in and touch it, rather than try and have to set up an airbrush and do it all that way.
Pete, can I ask, do you have some background heating in your big room to prevent it getting below, to keep it to a minimum temperature?
Well, for all those that insulate Britain, right, I've got to tell you, this barn's better insulated than you've ever seen anything. This is, we went to town on when we built this 30 years ago, but because I have my racing cars in here. So it's very well insulated, but we do have radiators in that are set at 16 degrees that just keep the chill off the place. It can get cold in here particularly with lockdown, we've left the doors open sometimes, but we like it around 15, 16 degrees. Doesn't move. Really, it's lovely.
Do you smoke in any of your locos? That's from Keith.
No, because I know John Ryan, my mate John Ryan, he does, but it leaves residue to me, and I haven't got time to keep cleaning all that stuff up. But we've got sound as well in some of them, but after a while it drives you nuts, So it's when kids come, we switch the sound on so they can hear the sound. But for all of us, we're just happy, running scale speeds and enjoying the trains.
Right. Has anybody else got any questions? A deafening silence.
Can I ask something about the control side? Are the signalling DCC controlled with the points, or do you not use signalling, or what's the plan there?
The signalling they're proper signal boxes. So when we've, this is the one area where 4 of our members were, and 2 still are, signalmen. Okay, so we made the decision from day one that we would work the boxes, because it's all semaphore. We would work the boxes exactly like semaphore signalling. So you would pull, you'd pull the point would come off. When you got that light, you would then change the signal. You physically have to do it. It doesn't do it for you.
Right.
That was so it's all done digitally, but you have to instruct it to do it. It doesn't do it automatically.
Thank you, Pete. That's interesting.
Yeah, and there is a reset button. So if we've been playing with the trains like today, when we switch on tomorrow, we press a button at the start of the day that sets all the points back to normal. So you've got your 4 roads and all your signals to danger. But as I say, we wanted to work the signals manually. We wanted that as part of our fun. We didn't go as far as having the levers. We've got little switches, but I mean, in hindsight, if I could have put in proper hand lever boxes, I guess we should have done that, but it never came to us at the time.
Interesting. Thank you.
Okay. And you still get a big kick out of playing trains with it?
Oh yeah, blimey, yeah. I mean, it's been very interesting. We nobody can be more serious about it than the 7 or 8 of us that have built Leamington Spa and built the West Coast. But you know what? We have a lot of fun. Tell you what, if the Prime Minister wants to know how to run this company, he should come here at 10 o'clock on a Sunday morning and listen to us while we have our first cup of tea. We're the best parliamentary debates you've ever heard in your life. We can sort everything out here. And as you saw, if you were anybody who saw the Hornby programme on Thursday night, we've got some fantastic characters here, that are passionate but funny. We don't take it serious. When we have an argument here, it always ends up with us roaring of laughter, because we love 2 of our members who are so easily wound up. How they've not had heart attacks by now but they do it every single time, and we bait them every single time, because to us it's social. It's like the one thing that I don't get about DCC and all the guys that come in and go, well, I can run it from home. I go and set up at the NEC for Worley, and then I go home and I spend the whole weekend. And I went, isn't this supposed to be a social hobby? Isn't it supposed to be where you sort of play? Dare I mention that you're supposed to interact with other people, and you want to sit at home with your wife? Well, why bother? Why bother? I don't get that. Yeah. Well, I can do it. Yeah, well, yeah, very clever of you. But you know what? I'd rather sit, at a show and talk to people about model railways, learn, because you always learn. Somebody always comes up with a new idea or does something different. You go, oh, quite like that idea. If you sit at home and you go, look at this, it all runs automatically, you go, oh, yeah, right. Well, I sit on a train every day run by Avanti. That runs itself as well, as far as I'm concerned. I'm not driving it. Gets me to London in 2 hours. I get off early then and get a tube train. And
going back to your point operating mechanisms, do you use the ones that you used to supply for the to join the tie bars?
Yes, I still do. Yeah, we still use those.
Have you had any failures?
One, I think. One. Okay, when Jeff Holt designed them, he bonded them with a piece of bandage and used araldite. That's how Jeff used to do it. They did break down. Since I've used super glue, and I use super glue on them, they've never broken down. Never. I've never had a problem. You know, it's you put them together, you super glue it. Never had a short. I've never had them unbond. When we used to, as I say, when we used the old-fashioned way with a bit of bandage and araldite, they did them. That broke down, but I've not had one break down with super glue.
I mean, I've used a piece of very thin tissue as stuck on with super glue, and I haven't got a single failure yet.
No, you know, as I say, I've never had a failure on here. Other than one
water at the moment.
Sorry.
Right. Yeah,
So
I mean, what?
Somebody have a question? No? Keith's asking, do you weather your locos and rolling stock?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, blimey, yes. It is very, in fact, I'm just looking around now. I have not got one pristine loco carriage, and I've got probably 5 or 6, maybe 10 wagons that haven't been yet weathered. No, everything's weathered. I know, I mean, yeah, I know. I mean, this is an interesting subject, isn't it? Particularly if you buy one of Lee Marsh's beautiful locos or one of the, you know, other Korean-made locos. That's a bit hard when you sort of just pay £3,500 for a model that you want to make it dirty. I get that, but to me, it's like I want it to look real, you know. And I guess that's where the difference is between modeling and collecting comes in. You know, I'm not looking for what mine are going to fetch in 20 years' time when I've popped my clogs. You know, I'm not interested. You know, it's about the enjoyment we get out of them at the minute.
Mm-hmm. Have you got any
good subject,
future...
that though, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a big subject. Have you got any future projects lined up?
Yeah, I'm quite interested in, you know, as I said to you earlier, DCC, I don't profess to be an expert in at all, but working on the 4mm stuff this year has opened my eyes to a lot more potential things you can do with DCC, particularly in the signalling sector, because with the 4mm, the whole layout was automatically signalled. It was all DCC signalled, all be on a separate system from the locos. But I like that. I love the colour side, like that, you know, when it changes. And so I'm looking at doing something for Steam that's going to make a little bit more interesting, you know, in identifying locos and that.
Mm-hmm. I know in the 4mm one that you just did, wasn't that Megapoints control system?
Oh yeah, I mean, no, and that's what set me off. I said, you know, you meet Dave, for instance, and he's so enthusiastic and so knowledgeable that, you know, you come up with an idea, he's already three yards ahead of you, and by the time you've caught up with him, he's gone around the corner and thought of something else. You know, it's like trying to catch a bar of soap. You think you got it in your hand, you squeeze it, and it's popped out. You know, but it makes you. It then gets your brain thinking, "What? Whoa, this is interesting. What if we did this? What if we did that?" But it's not automatic. You know, we don't want to go completely automatic, but if we can add some more interesting features into what we're doing, then particularly for younger people, sound is very important. You mentioned smoke. It's important. Lights in coaches. It's important for the younger guys to keep them in. And we've got to bring young people into our hobby all the time.
Mm-hmm. Ian Allen's asking a question. Do you have a timescale for Brinklow being completed?
No, since you were all here, I've ripped it all out. And I'm redoing it all at the minute. And I'm hoping that by Christmas, it'll all be back together as completely different from what it was. You know, I was never happy with what we did at Brinklow. I've ripped it all out. It's nearly all back. We spent 2 weekends putting it all back. I've just got to finish painting all the clouds out back to white, and we'll start again. But I'm hoping to have that all done by Christmas, and then I'll be happy with it. I just was never happy with Brinklow.
I take it that's another part of your extending layout.
Well, it's part, when we built the layout, one part of the room is just LMS. And so you can get away from the layout by going in, because obviously the LMS section at Leamington Spa goes behind a board. And so the room, there's a room within a room, and at the other room, that's just Brinklow. And that is scale, that's Brinklow scale. It's lovely. It's fantastic to play with because the signalling is superb. But the scenery was never right for me. It was done by, in the early days, by one of the guys that was a member, and he got it wrong. He put bridges in the wrong places. So I've taken them out now, and we've gone back, and I'll have made it look like Brink. And then perhaps we can do some more videos.
Are you still documenting progress online, Pete?
Yes. Yeah. As I say, there's nothing to update on here, but we will next week. You'll start to see Brinklow again, because as I say, I've done a lot of work.
Is that on your own website?
Yeah, it's on it's on Railnuts Facebook page.
Okay. Thanks.
Well, thank you very much, Pete.
Pleasure.
And unless anybody else has got any further questions, I'll like to round off the session by saying thank you very much for agreeing to come along. Thank you for letting us video your layout. And maybe when you've got any further developments, we can video a bit more.
Absolutely. I can go on and play trains now.
Or even visit, if that's possible.
And maybe we'll have to arrange to come across and see it again.
Absolutely. Anytime.
That's absolutely simple. Well, thank you very much, Peter. And thank you for everybody who's joined us and given up the interesting questions.
Thank you, Pete, and thank you, Tony,
in
for
a few
hosting.
days' time, the video will be back on the Guild YouTube channel, and you'll be able to watch it again. But it will take a few days for that to happen. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Pete.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Cheerio, everybody.
Yeah.
Cheerio.
Cheerio. Bye.